Hey, what's up? Hey, MP here, and I just wanted to talk about how to export SVGs from Illustrator and what are the precise settings that you should be using so that you can get the best markup that you can use in your web applications. So as you might know, if you export an SVG from Illustrator, it exports it as XML. And there are some different options whenever you export it. And what those options will change is exactly how the XML is structured. So it's not going to change the image per se, but it's just going to change the actual XML code that makes up that image. So I just have this simple SVG that I pulled off of Google. And what I did is I just drug it into Adobe Illustrator and it opened it up, as you can see here. So this is made up of a bunch of different layers. We can actually check on that by going over to the Layers tab and expanding it. So you can see that there's these are groups, I guess you would say. I'm not incredibly familiar with Illustrator, but I think these are groups or just layers that if you put a layer in a layer, that is in essence a group. And each one of these has different paths, and as you can see, they're all named something. The name is all different on these layers. What we can do is you can actually change these to be a little bit more descriptive about your SVG. So as you can see here, path 3932-3. All right, in Illustrator, it's not a big deal, but if you're going to actually style this with CSS in your HTML, that is going to be a big deal because there's no pattern to that. What if I wanted to target just these triangles? It's going to be difficult for me to script that in my CSS to target just triangles because these are sort of nonsensical names. Let's change this to arrow. So all the arrows, anything that is in common with this. So if you're familiar with CSS, this would be the equivalent to a class in CSS. So I'm going to do that, and here let's just change this to line and maybe circle, and this is a line as well, and this is a circle. And so we've changed these descriptors so that, or these names so that they're a little bit more descriptive. We can also change this to arrow, or I'm sorry, anchor. And we'll just leave these groups up here. I didn't create this SVG, so I'm not sure why there are additional layers on here. Let's try to export this and see what we get. Go to File. Let's go down to Export, and we'll hit Export As. And obviously, we'll name this descriptive, so Anchor SVG. So as we can see here, the next step for exporting is specifying some of these SVG options. So we can specify different things with the styling, how we want our CSS managed, with the font, what we'd like to do with our images. I'm not going to touch on those right now because I want to talk about specifically what to do with these object IDs. So if we select layer names and take a look at what the code it exports looks like, we can click Show Code, which will pop up this example XML, and we can actually bring that into a text editor. If I open up my text editor and paste that in, and I'll say that this is SVG, or I'm sorry, XML. Let me format this so we can see this a little better. We have our IDs, and our IDs are the name that we placed on those layers. So you can see line 2, circle 2, line 3. It's adding those numbers on it because IDs must be unique. So we can't have multiple tags with the ID of line on the same page. That's a no-no in HTML. But what we do have is that they have then moved the layer name, the actual layer name, into this what's called a data attribute. So anytime that you see data dash something, that is what's known as a data attribute. Unfortunately, what you see here is that only the tags where the ID has been altered do we have this data dash name on it, and that's not what we want. So if we go to minimal and see what that looks like. You can see that this is really not what we want because it's stripped out all of the identifiable information about the layers. So this is going to make it very difficult for us to target this with JavaScript or CSS. So let's try unique. So as you can see here with unique, it's looking a lot better. Each one of our paths that we've named and groups that we've named has this data-name attribute with the layer name that we gave it. And that is what we want. We can use these data-names as classes. So to illustrate this, what I've done is I've actually moved that SVG code into an HTML file. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this file up in Chrome and see what it looks like. Now let's try to style those arrows like we had talked about. And I'm going to target these data attributes. And let's change the fill color to red. Refresh. As you can see, I'm now successfully targeting those. So thanks for watching. Those were my recommendations for how to structure your Illustrator file. So whenever you go to export those to use those in your website, they'll look awesome.